What's good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar approaching tomorrow, what you should be watching for on the charts. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, and the offer ends very soon in just 10 days. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So once again, guys, NIO is range bound. Right now we have 5.62 as our resistance. We have some support at 5.23, but it's very, very minor, and the strongest support is at $5 flat. Right now we're just kind of range bound, going back and forth, not really doing much. So we'll see what happens at least from this point on. But I want to talk about more factors involving the markets first before I break down the charts. So for next week, we have some very important stuff coming out. Firstly, for Monday, we have important SP Global Composite and Manufacturing PMI reports coming out. The PMI data is going to cause a very, very big move next week after the market opens. So we'll be watching to see what that leads to. We also have Cash Curry from the Fed giving a speech. Then on Tuesday, we have the Richmond Fed giving us some more data about manufacturing and services. On Wednesday, there's not really much coming out, but then Thursday, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. Whatever Jerome Powell says, okay, is going to cause a very, very big move. I can't wait to see what he ends up announcing, and we'll see what he says. He could be talking more about how the Fed is trying to calm the situations down, and this could help the market hold up if he remains very, very optimistic, even more dovish. So we'll see how it goes. And then on top of this, we also have on Friday the PCE data report that's going to be very important. So I can't wait for that. And that's what I'm seeing, at least for the time being, for the markets. So the question is, what's going to happen? I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. As a reminder, we also have these earnings coming out. So one important one is going to be Costco. So if you're interested in playing that or watching that for retail, that's going to be key. Their guidance especially. The market thinks there's a 50-50 chance of us getting a 25 or 50 basis point cut in November. And then right now, greed is making up sentiment. The market's holding up very nicely at these strong levels. Extreme greed is making up the majority of sentiment. And we also have the puts and call option ratio that's kind of flat right now. It has been dipping a little bit as we've been seeing a lot of puts being closed. There's not much else that's going on here. We're still seeing greed making up sentiment. NIO has about 50 million in volume. It's about average, not really doing much. And the last thing I want to mention is that all the analyst ratings remain the same. I haven't seen anything new that's come out. The price price ratio is very flat right now. And finally, when it comes to seasonality, you guys can see that we do have a tendency to be in green a little bit less on Mondays, only about 49% of the time. We tend to be more green on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, at least historically. So what do I see for the share price? In my personal opinion, NIO got this little rejection right here. We do have a tendency from these wicks when we dip. So I could see this dip just a little bit. It might try to retest 5.23, if not 5.14. Then we're going to be looking for a nice little rebound after that to try to push back up. Now, I do want to note that it's possible we're about to form like a flag, so it could be forming kind of like either a flag or kind of like a megaphone like structure. But right over here, NIO is looking like it's flagging right now, so this could lead to more downside for next week. So it could come down to this lower support towards 5 and rebound and continue to trade in this range until we get a breakout later on to the upside. So I'll be watching for that. As far as SPY goes, SPY is indecisive right now. We're holding this yellow trend line of support. Excuse me. So I know it's a little hard to see. We have this yellow line right here, which is why SPY is respecting an uptrend. And as long as we hold that, going into next week, there's a good chance it tries to rebound and tries to go for that gap fill. We were due for a little bit of a dip after we saw so much upside after FOMC. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually try to push back up to fill this gap for that 570 area next week. We'll see if SPY holds that, but that's going to be very, very key for us. As far as ES goes, we're also kind of range bound right here. We held our 20 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. You guys can see we tested 57.35. We hit this and we're rebounding, so it could try to push closer to 5,800. For Nvda is currently kind of flat. It is dipping a little bit. We're going to be looking at 115 to be tested next week. We'll see if it holds that. If it holds 115, the 50 EMA, it could try to rebound, or it could dip a little bit more to fill this gap to 114, then try to bounce. But I could see a little bit more downside coming. 114 to 115 could be tested before it tries to bounce. That is the most likely case, in my opinion. For Bitcoin, we're dipping right now. I think we could get very close to our 20 EMA. So next week, early on, it might dip a little bit more to get to 62,000 flat. Then it might try to bounce off of that. So watch and see a little bit dip and a bounce. That is the most likely case. For Tesla, We're doing completely fine. Tesla's just getting a very, very technical and very, very normal little dip. It is possible we get closer to 235 next week, then we try to bounce. But I don't think Tesla's done. The overall structure is still bullish. There's a nice accumulation that's forming. Look for a little bit of a dip and then a bounce. We could get closer to 235 next week and bounce and start looking for the 246 gap to get filled, followed by more upside. I think Tesla's completely fine. It was up 7% on Thursday, so it being down 2% does not matter as much. If we lose 234, though, it is possible we come down to fill the gap to like 229 and then we bounce. But it looks a little bit less likely. That's going to be a bigger drop. We need a bad catalyst for that to happen. But either way, whether we go down to 229 or if it's just 235, it's not that big of a move. It's still going to bounce off one of those levels. Most likely, I believe that it will bounce. So it's going to be completely fine. Could dip a little bit more, but then there should be a bounce coming. For NQ, we dipped a little bit, hitting our 20 EMA only to rebound. So next week, we're going to be looking for this imbalance to fill, going back up to 20,000. It might be kind of slow to do that, though. That is a tough resistance, so it might slowly climb its way up. And then the QQQ may also try to break out. We dipped only to rebound. We held our gap support. So if we were to hypothetically lose 478, we're looking for this gap fill towards 475 before we try to bounce. If we hold 480, we're looking for a rebound back up to the highest towards 485 or above. So I see potential in this nonetheless. For Apple is dipping a little bit, got a nice bounce and a little bit of a dip. We could see Apple dip a little bit more here. It is possible it actually comes down to this low towards 227. If not, if that fails us, we're going all the way down to 225, and then we could bounce off one of those two levels. So look for a little bit of a dip and then a rebound after that. For just a few more, the IWM is dipping a little bit. It might come down to fill the gap, so it could get closer to 220 next week before it tries to bounce again. So I see potential in that. Coinbase is kind of like flat right now, consolidating. So look at this 167 area support. We'll see if it bounces off that or not. For Amazon, we're on a very, very strong uptrend right now. We bounced off our 20 EMA and we're testing 191. So it could try to push up for 192.75 next week. There's potential for us to try to break this resistance. If that breaks, we're easily going up towards 196 all over again. So look for a test of 192.75. For Meta, we look a little bit more bullish. We do have potential to dip a little bit right here towards 560. Then we could try to rebound off of that. If 560 fails us, we're looking for 555, but I don't think it's going to be dipping that much. I think it might try to test 560, then bounce. So we'll see how things go. For Microsoft, we were kind of dipping right here. We'll see if this gap fills. It did fill the gap, but watch 433 is the key support. We did bounce off our 20 EMA many times. So I presume it's going to be testing 466. 433, excuse me, guys. I don't know why I said that. 433, and we'll see if it bounces off this or not. I think it might dip next week and then try to bounce. Google remains bullish, is trying to fight to break resistance at 165. If that breaks, we're looking for 168. It still looks very strong compared to like Microsoft and the others. So there's a lot of strength that's building. With that being said, the market looks like it could dip and then try to rebound next week. We're looking pretty good. We have a lot of catalysts from Jerome Powell's speech to PCE data. So we'll see how things go. NIO looks like it could dip a little bit, but we could be forming a nice flag that could lead to a breakout later on. So we'll see how it ends up holding at these levels. With that being said, we might dip a little bit next week early on, closer to $5 flat, but look for a bounce as time goes on. I thank you all for listening. I really appreciate you guys for everything you do. So please have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. And I'll be back for another video very, very soon. I'll be back on Sunday. So until then, enjoy what life has to offer and peace out.